We're going to get started in just a moment, so I'm really glad that you are all here for our lecture with Stephen J. Yazzie tonight. It's a pleasure to have him. So let me begin by saying that we would like to acknowledge the land on which the University at Buffalo operates, which is the territory of the Seneca Nation, a member of the Haudenosaunee Six Nations Confederacy. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty of Peace and Friendship, a pledge to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. It is also covered by the 1794 Treaty of Canandaigua between the United States government and the Six Nations Confederacy, which further affirmed Haudenosaunee land rights and sovereignty in the state of New York. Today, this region is still the home to the Haudenosaunee people, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and share ideas in this territory. Stephen J. Yazzie is a multidisciplinary artist working in painting, installation, video, film, and community. Yazzie is a member of the Navajo Nation and a veteran of the Gulf War, serving honorably with the United States Marine Corps from 1988 to 92. He received a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Intermedia at Arizona State University and was named 2014 Outstanding Graduate for the Herberger Institute for Design and Art. Yazzie was a community scholar for the Interdisciplinary Research Institute for the Study of Inequality, University of Denver, Colorado, 2019 to 20. Additionally, Yazzie was a founding member of Postcommodity, an indigenous arts collective, and the co-founder of the Museum of Walking. About his recent solo exhibition, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver, wrote, "Yazzie's work often draws inspiration from personal memories and immersive experiences revisiting sites in the northern region of the Navajo Reservation, Dinata, in Arizona and New Mexico, where the artist grew up. From energetic, colorful landscape paintings to a sculpture crafted from fallen trees to drawings made while the artist rode a bicycle, the selection of works on view conveys a sense of motion and temporal progression intrinsic to many contemporary interactions between humans and nature. Today, natural landscapes are often taken in from the window of a moving vehicle, viewed from our phones or computer screens, or conjured from distant or secondhand memories. Deconstructing romanticized notions and imagery of the West, Yazzie's works are both grounded in sites of his past and present and characterized by a visceral motion that fluctuates between control and chaos. Yazzie's notable exhibitions include the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., the Museum of Modern Art, New York, New York, National Museum of the American Indian, New York, New York, Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver, the Denver Art Museum, Colorado, the National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa, the Art Gallery of Ontario in Toronto, Canada, the Phoenix Art Museum, the Scottsdale Museum of American Art, and the Tucson Museum of Art in Arizona. Yazzie has been selected for the 2025 Sharjah Biennial 16 in the United Arab Emirates. Yazzie has had residencies at Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture in Maine, Plug-in Institute of Contemporary Art in Winnipeg, Canada, the Museum of Contemporary Native Art, Social Engagement Residency in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Eiteljorg Contemporary Art Fellowship in Indianapolis, Indiana, the Native Artist in Residence at the Denver Art Museum in Colorado, and is a 2024 UCross Fellow in Wyoming. He lives and works in Denver, Colorado. Please join me in welcoming Stephen J. Yazzie.
Well, hello, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you. I want to thank the university and thank the department for the invitation to present and share some work with you tonight. I think I need to be speaking closer here. So tonight I want to share a few projects, a couple exhibitions, some recent exhibitions One that was referenced in the intro called Meandered, which includes some drawing and driving work, new abstract painting, an elders, a piece called Elders, which is a sculptural installation, and a video piece, a video work called Earthlines, E1, D1, Earthlines, the Natal 1, which this is a beginning reference or study for. I also want to present some work that's currently on an exhibition at the Denver Art Museum called Knowing You Denver. It's a community film and installation project, as well as work that, if we have a chance, I'll get into this exhibition at the Herberger Museum. It's currently on display called Vivarium. But I really wanted to begin by playing this video to give you a context or a sense of where I came from, where I grew up. I was born in California but raised on the Navajo Reservation, and up until my sophomore year of high school, where I eventually moved to Phoenix and lived in the valley in that area. My work now is more really referencing and connecting back towards land than anything else. But at the very beginning of my career or my practice, I began as a painter in the mid-90s, but really began exhibiting kind of like the early 2000s. And I'll show some early work just to give you a sense of like the trajectory or some, my initial ideas in the work and where I'm at today. So I'll play this, and this will give you, if you've never been out to the Navajo Reservation, this will give you a sense of the land. I wanted to give you kind of an idea of, the color and the texture. And this is also a study for a larger piece that I was working on that's currently at the Herberger Museum called Substance of Stars. It's a single channel video, but it's wrapped around 4 walls of a gallery in an immersive space. This work is really, I was, for the Substance of Stars work, this was a study for really looking at kind of our relationship with the land, and looking at significant areas that I grew up in for me, both that have like kind of a personal significance, but also, where a lot of our stories come from. This is up near the region. I grew up in a place called Black Mesa and the Chi, and in and outside of Page, Arizona, which is near it's the northwestern boundary of the Navajo Reservation. And if you're not familiar with that reservation, in terms of land base, it's the largest reservation in the U.S. It's pretty big. It covers Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Utah. I've got a lot of different videos to play tonight, so I'm just going to cut this one a little short because I have a feeling that I may go over time if I let these play all the way through. But you get a sense of the place, a sense of the land. I want to go back to like an initial project. And I'm going to talk a little bit over some of these videos. I wanted to share this work because this is, I began as a self-taught artist. I worked initially just around other artists and began to learn how to paint, on my own. And I went back to school later in life to finish an undergrad, but I was very fortunate enough early on to get connected with the Herberger Museum, which is in Phoenix, where I was living at the time, And in '99, I got my first big grant and partnered with the Herberger Museum to create this mural called Fear of a Red Planet. And this was the first work that really, I was allowed and encouraged, not only from the institutional kind of like push, but I wanted to, the theme of this mural was about forced relocation and removal of Native people in our land. And I looked at a couple different, I looked at the communities that I came from, kind of the Navajo, the Dene, and also where I was living in Phoenix, the Yaqui and the Uemi, who came up from the south, and tried and created, retelling these stories of colonization from, stories and memories, stories that I heard growing up, and just things I knew about that maybe weren't taught to me in school. And so this became like something that really pushed me to think about my, where I came from and bringing that into the work that I was creating. This was done it was up from 2000 to 2016, and lucky, or fortunate, I was able to, I painted this actually on campus, and it was adhered to the museum wall. So when they redesigned this gallery, when it came down in 2016, I was able to take all this work off and put it into the collection at the museum. So it was nice that I was able to have this mural up as a mural, but then when it was decommissioned, it still has a life in the museum, which was really nice to have. These are the panels of the work. The other form of relocation and removal and kind of the impact that things that happen to indigenous people here. We had boarding schools here in the U.S., but also up in the residency schools up in Canada, First Nations. But this was these panels. These first two panels were telling that story. This is a portrait of Colonel Kit Carson, who led the long walk for the Navajo, forced the Navajo into encampments in Mexico, and then eventually we were able to come back to our land. So as you can see, a lot of my early work was figurative and somewhat representational. And that was really where I started, thinking about my early work. Like I think a lot of young artists, we're going through this phase of identity and trying to figure ourselves out. And so it was through, painting the figure and story that helped give you a sense of who I was and the kind of work that I wanted to create. This is a kind of a playful poke at my own background. There's my dad who's wearing a tie. So I was like, does he want to be a used car salesman? And my mom, who's from Michigan, a white girl from Michigan, who was dressed up like a Navajo. And then there is a Kit Carson elementary school, I believe, in East Mesa, or in the valley of Phoenix. It's Phoenix, and then one of the suburbs is Mesa. But how ironic, there is a school named after this guy who led the incarceration of Navajos. This is a panel about the Yaqui with the Uemi. And this area here, through the different time, this is showing the different periods of time, and how long the battle or these efforts of colonization have existed. And then also the relocation and removal of dams, of waters, the impact of waterways and lifeways. The Colorado River was the focus of these last two panels, where they've been dammed up. We have Glen Canyon Dam and Hoover Dam. You have Lake Powell and Lake Mead, but also, and the impacts that had, and there, of course there's these ideas of gaming and things that can happen on those, on those rivers. I'm going to jump way ahead now to 2006. I was at a residency in Skowhegan, and I fell into this project that became Drawing and Driving. And up until this point, I'd been doing a lot of the painting work and the representational work, and I was really trying to, I felt like I was hitting kind of the ceiling and all that, and this became initially a playful idea of like, you know, drawing and racing down this hill, but over time it was, I would share it with some of the other community members, or the other participants, in the, at the residency, and we began drawing and driving together, and it became this conversation around drawing, what it could be, what does it mean to be drawing and driving in a vehicle. For me, coming from Phoenix, coming from car culture, coming from the West, you know, we're always in our vehicles. I'll play you a little bit of this piece. This was drawing a picture, which is as this idea was you know, still kind of, you know, being developed. On my way back from Maine, I drove through the reservation back to Phoenix, and I passed the Monument Valley, and I thought it would be really great to come back here. And so I was able to work with the tribe and the park, the tribal park here, and I got permission to drive and draw through this area that is usually it's a heavily visited area. You know, it's a big tourist attraction. It's also a location of like early Western films. So there's this, and it all, you know, people come to photograph and paint this area. And so there's a very romantic idea about this land. But in order to experience this land, you have to travel on I think it's a 13-mile loop through the park. And you're experiencing it through a car, you know. So everything is, there's different areas that you can stop at along the way, but you know, the idea of technology, the speed of our lives, and what does it mean to be drawing and being influenced by the you know, the vehicle. We talk about the absurdist kind of stuff. And it's like this frenetic action of like trying to manage, you know, racing down this hill while creating something. But it's really fun. So I'm going to show this video because it also, this is before GoPros. It really gives you kind of this raw, intense, and the video is shot on like little DV tape cameras. And the newer drawing and driving works are, we have stabilization in the GoPros. But again, I'll stop it so you can see there's the car down there. So just to bring you up to speed on the evolution of that, here is, so this is getting into the current, the exhibition that I just had at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Denver, were called Meandered, and I'll get into some of that work. This is some of the work, and for me, like going into, you know, I try to take this project into areas that have had some environmental impacts, or there's something significant about the places that I'm working through. For this area here, I'm just driving and drawing through some of the state parks. And I'll just to show you a little bit of this one, but then I want to show you some of the works that came from this. Everything is so much smoother now. And 4K. This project is also involved into drifting and painting, which is the new work. I'm floating down rivers and painting. And I invite people to pilot or to row the boat that I'm in who haven't maybe ever rowed before. And so they are, I don't know how our trip's going to go. So I'm bouncing in between rocks and just, being pulled by the current. And a part of it is kind of giving yourself up to that. And that work is now painting work, which I don't have up yet because it's still very new. But it's the kind of the evolution of this project. This is the work that was created from that. And then the last one I'll show is the Haven Fire area. This was an area that this is when I started to use color in these drawings. And up until this point, up until this exhibition, it's only been drawing with pencil or charcoal. So this location that I'm drawing here, 20 years ago, there was a massive fire. It's in the Pike National Forest in Colorado outside of Denver. And it was the fire that really kicked off the conversation around climate change and what was happening in the region and the state. It was a really devastating fire. You can see, you get a sense of it when you see some of these shots. But the growth is coming back. It's a little slow. But this was all, heavily forested area. This work is like, there's a lot more color in these. So this is the new version of that. This was at the Meandered show. So the Meandered exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art included these four different elements or components. The first one I just showed you was the drawing and driving work, and another gallery. Well, I want to show you this one here first. The Elders. This is an installation piece. So at first glance, this may look like a fallen tree, and it's supposed to imply or look like one, but it's actually created from 12 different species of tree from Colorado. And it's about 17 feet long. And you can begin to see the sections of tree. So that's one part of this piece, is this reimagined tree form. And the other part of this are 12 voices of indigenous elders that I've met over the years, and I was able to interview for other projects, but I was able to use some of this excerpts of video recordings that I had, or audio from the video interviews that I had, and I was able to bring this archive back to life, or to life, with this project. And so when you experience this piece, and when the visitor experiences this piece, I would have the sound playing through a directional speakers over the tree. So you may not hear it right away, but as you get closer to the tree form, you really can hear
We moved here
these
with
stories that are being told.
my cousins and aunties and uncles, and we lived down on, our first house, I guess, was down on Varmer Street. And it was a huge 3-story thing, and there was 20 of us living in it. 20 with my aunties and uncles. And my dad started working for a sign company. And as he did, that afforded us more ability to move into our own place. And this was in the early 60s. So we moved to an area in Auraria campus.
So I tried to
right
weave
next door
in
to St. Catherine's
these stories
School.
that these elders were sharing in a long kind of looping narrative. It runs, this entire piece, the audio-wise, it runs about 25 minutes.
They sent.
So if you're interested, you can always go back and listen to this. But all of them are speaking in some way about, land, relationship to land, community, and stories that are coming up very specific to their tribal communities.
That space
And just, I got very lucky with some of the
So in 1972, we had to move out of there, and we moved on the west side of Denver.
So that was an ongoing kind of piece in one of the galleries, and then the next one I'll share some of the new paintings. So this is the work I'm currently working at. This piece is actually going to be showing in Sharjah, and it's close to scale. So the piece is 16 feet by 6.5 feet, so it's a little larger than what it on the projection. It's so great to be able to see it this big. But so Meandered, it was the title piece for the show, and it's also in a sense, it's a tool that I'm using in creating this type of abstraction. And I know I talked to a couple artists today who I felt were working in kind of in the same spirit of this unconscious or this meandering, discovery. So this work is a place non-place. It's not a specific location, but I wanted to create the sense of a place. And also, I like the idea of abstraction, in the history of abstraction that really deals with the two-dimensional plane. It's really about flat, and it's not about the space, but I like playing with this idea of and giving different kind of, views into something that feels like you're like a space or that it has depth, but then if you follow this, these brush strokes or these lines, it flattens out. And so it's kind of like, it goes back and forth for me. And it's really, there was a question or a point that came up in the conversation I had with one of the grad students today was like, what's the meaning of this? Like, that's the wrong question, right? How does it feel? What does it feel like? How does it, what's the feeling this is evoking versus what does it mean? So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about as I'm kind of just discovering these. So this work is it's not pre-drawn out and filled in. It happens through layers and layers, and I make decisions on when to stop in certain areas. But I usually begin at the top and work my way down and then repeat a couple times. And in order to bring the weight of the painting down, at the bottom of the piece, so it feels like you're looking back into something. These are the other paintings that were in that show as well. That's Black Mountain Redux. And I think the screen's a little, I think these solo shows in the museum, and I was representing the Colorado region. And so a lot of these are very mountainous, the canyons, I wanted it to feel like the things that I was seeing in the Colorado region, as well as references to the canyons and places that were, just south of us on the res in Arizona and stuff. Oh, one other note too I want to make on this, on the meander, because it became something that was intentional. Was this, so the feeling of this for me was like there's a lot of fallen trees. Also the idea of nature as this place of it's a dynamic place, and so how can I create something that feels like it's moving but it's a static image? How can I give it a sense of things where there's transformation happening, and also that there isn't like a tree that's alive in this, that's all fallen trees, or maybe there's some regrowth, but yet all the color is bright and colorful. So I like that. That I think it's just kind of another interesting layer to the work. The last piece that I'll share in the exhibition is, this is the Earthlines de Neta 1. And for this piece, this is actually about to scale that you would see it in the museum. But this piece is part of my investigation back, going back to where I grew up, in these areas that I was around when I was young. And also looking at, when we moved up, when I was little, we moved to the reservation so my dad could get a job at a place called Peabody Coal Mine. And there were a couple of coal mines, Peabody and Kayenta, up in this place called Black Mesa. So not only coal mining, that kind of resource extraction from where I grew up, but also there are over 500 abandoned uranium mines on the Navajo reservation. And my father, he was my stepfather who passed away, considered a downwinder. And those are people that were exposed to uranium at some point, and he was probably playing around it or he was near it, but he died young of cancer. And so I decided to go back to these areas of not only the coal mine area, but I went back to two specific areas where the uranium deposits have been covered up, and it's like an old mine. And I flew over a lot of these areas, but started to look at, when I was looking at all the footage I was shooting, I started seeing like topographies kind of matching up like lines, whether there was a fence line of a uranium site or like a waterway, and decided to kind of like weave these together. So it's this idea of like land falling down into the earth, right? You're just like, you're only seeing it from one perspective. It's a very unique kind of like way that we're able to see the land. You can see it from an airplane like this. And also, for me, I think of surveillance or mapping. But as I'm piecing these things together, they're all geographically connected as well. So these waterways are connected to these old mining areas, are connected to these new mining areas that are connected to these other waterways and these canyons. So all these things feed into, areas where we're getting water, where we've extracted the water from the aquifer from this land. This is part of the old Peabody coal mine area that's now decommissioned. But this is an area, but the mine left after there was no more water, essentially. So that's what this piece is. Really kind of unearthing or exploring, but also, compositionally trying to line things up where you're following this one through line through the land, both man-made and natural. And this also cycles through from, I had this playing once with audio, and the sound actually that you're hearing are all manipulated field recordings. So it's layered sound from these trips that I would make, whether I was recording in the field, or I was recording a flight of a plane, or I was at a hotel and recording this refrigerator that's kind of vibrating in the corner, and trying to find something that has some kind of tonal quality or sound to it that I could like manipulate later. So a lot of these are stretched out sounds that I just layered on top. This is another part of the life. And any image that is showing like the human impact, the sound, I wanted the sound to reflect that intensity or that off-keyness. So again, you guys can check that out if you're interested in it. Okay, good. Doing good on time. Okay, so this last project I want to talk about, it's part of an exhibition that's at the Denver Art Museum now through the new year. So if you ever get a chance, you can come out and see it. But it's called Knowing You Denver. And Knowing You Denver is a community, it's a data-driven community film project. And it was created initially at 2022. I was in a residency at the museum, and I was thinking about how, how can I get to, create a project that involves the community. I was relatively new to Denver at the time. I moved there in 2018, or 2018. And so I came up with this project. There's another version of this called Knowing You Santa Fe, but this one is, I went a little bit further and was able to collaborate a little bit deeper with the community. Essentially, I hosted 4 focus groups during about a 4-month period. Every month we'd have a new focus group. During that time, we'd also have these prompts on the wall, these up here in a gallery. And so visitors could respond to different questions. And this is the beginning of the categorization of those questions from museum visitors. So this is kind of phase 1. And I'll give you an example of some of the questions. What is the best time of day to experience Denver? Imagine Denver as a color, what would it be? What sounds do you hear in and around Denver? Questions like that kind of, might seem, meaningless or not asking for too much, but those are the questions, those responses would give us the direction on the time of day we're going to shoot the film, or what locations are the most significant to the community. Those are the locations we're going to film. What are the sounds we need to capture for different scenes? So a lot of these questions, like the average Denver citizen can be described as, or what is the greatest resource? What is Denver's greatest resource? Or what are the most critical issues facing Denver? Those questions became focus group questions that we had with 4 different groups. There was about 7 to 10 community members in each focus group. But the one thing that I added to each focus group was I had an indigenous voice. So I was able to always make sure I had like a native or indigenous person in that group. And for me, that kind of solidified the through line of kind of making sure that the indigenous voice was present in our data. These are some examples, some shots of the focus groups. We recorded all the focus groups in audio, and I was able to invite a friend who I worked with at the University of Denver, at DU, Ramona Beltran, who she's a professor at the Graduate School of Social Work, and she helped to moderate some of these focus groups. And this is her here. She also was always looking for a way to do something creative with the data that she normally uses just for research. Like, this project allowed her to come in and help not only run a focus group, which felt very much like social research, right? But she, I asked her to write. She has this thing I learned about, this kind of way of like quantifying or like listening to the research and making notes and creating these poetic gestures or lines or marks or notes that she put into into 4 different scripts. So it's I gotta show you this. I get excited about this project. It's kind of new and it involves so many different layers. There's a lot better of a description than I'm probably giving on the website. But so all the words in these poems came from the focus group conversations. The only words that she added were like and or but or the, and just to and then she rearranged these things. And then the next phase of this was for me to invite 4 different community members to read these as voiceovers that we used in scenes in the film. And then the other 4 scenes that were created the other 4 scenes, so we created 8 scenes in all. There's a sequence of voiceover that was all community voice, and then images that we tried to tie into that story. And then the other 4 scenes, we invited an actor and a non-actor from the community to improv scenes that were based off of the same themes that we explored in the voiceover. I'm going to play you a little bit of the beginning of this, and then a little bit of the end, so you can see how it unfolded. I also invited a cinematographer from Denver who I've worked with on other projects, but he came in as the DP, he's the proper DP. I just got to direct and kind of manage the production in other ways, but this is Knowing You Denver.
Black to blue, blue to red, red to orange, gold, sunrise. Take deep breaths. The sun on the mountain, the sparkle on the skyline, reminds me to look up. Everyone is still sleeping, except the birds, the trees, the sky. Colfax is quiet. Altar, a place to remember. I listen, I hear. Deep breaths. The day feels possible, peaceful, slowly. The whispers, then waves. Hear neighbors, housed and unhoused. The world comes alive. I journey outside, talk to people, greet people. Unhoused, homeless, without house. But always respectful, open, an invitation. Late afternoon, the sun hits the skyline. Again, reminds me to look up. People moving, going. Conversations, cacophony. When nobody is listening, I love to listen. Summer, afternoon thunderstorms, booming, breathtaking, cooling the air, respite from heat. Dance into the golden hour. Purple, pink, orange, magenta. Silver that slices the eye, but you keep looking in awe. Sunset. Thin line of light hovers over the mountains. Blue to indigo, indigo to black. Nighttime. Beautiful magic, big open skies, cool air, crisp air, polluted, yet I can see the Big Dipper. Orion's belt reminds me to look up. Darkest night slowly creeping to morning. A time where I talk to God, I talk to my ancestors, feel them more deeply. The veil of light lifting, black to blue, blue to red, red to gold. Sunrise.
Yeah, I grew up in like monument area, so it was fun. We grew up in like the woods,
Okay.
10 acres, and I just spent every single day outside.
A lot of land, huh?
Yes, yeah. So it reminds me of all the good parts of my childhood for sure.
That's good. You
Yeah.
want to keep those parts, you know?
Yeah,
Keeps
yeah.
you young, keeps you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an example of like the scene, the kind of the progression of the voiceover into the scene, the voiceover into the scene. And so it works that way for about 25 minutes. I don't want to play the entire thing, because I don't think we have time, but I do want to play this last part, which I just felt very lucky that, you know, sometimes when you reach out and you just ask for help, that your community can give it to you, and it's nice that I was able to work with there's this Navajo comedian, Josh Emerson, who, this next scene, these guys are two friends. They're both, actually they're stand-ups in town. They stand-up comedy, but we really pushed this scene. Again, these themes came out of the conversations. We allowed them to improv, you know, to work through some ideas. We would block, which is just kind of framing each shot, how we wanted the sequence to go to make it feel natural. But these, we rehearsed like kind of at the location and then reshot until we felt like we had something. So this was something that really just kind of happened organically. And I'll start with a little bit of the voiceover. We'll go into the last scene. And if you want to watch the thing and the film in its entirety, then I'll give you the password if you want. It'll be.
Yard, coyotes on the streets, mountain lions, deer on Arapaho Road, cranes and birds in migration. Reminds me of home, the reservation. This is their land. And iconic spaces are held in public trust. Green spaces, sentient. We can control our destiny, hold in trust for us to benefit us. It's our responsibility to protect this city and culture, its people.
I like the Caribbean change.
Yeah.
I like it with the prime rib.
Break it a little bit with some aioli.
Yeah, exactly. I love the little
Good shit.
All right.
What, you know, pardon my wife, but what about this is indigenous?
You know, the God is indigenous that made it, and that's good enough for me, right? You gotta support indigenous.
Sure.
And yet, I don't like all of it. And I can see the town in it, and I love, like, its noise. You can feel the noise in the other city. It's not to my taste, but that's fine.
Right. Like, yeah, there's a moon, why is it there? Walking, I guess it's a, like a Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah, moonwalking. Oh, he's moonwalking.
Moonwalking.
Oh, I'm glad we got that.
Yeah, great. I was wondering.
Yeah. Oh, man. You guys like it? It's interesting, right?
I'm tired, man.
Yeah, well, flip-flops. Good flip-flops, though.
How do you know those are flip-flops?
Well, because of the thongs. You don't think those are flip-flops? What do you think they are? I think they're moccasins.
Blue shoes with white stripes. Cool.
Probably.
Cool new night.
They're probably moccasins. And sevens, maybe. Go Kyrie Irving.
Moccasin sevens?
Moccasin sevens. Have you seen those? Those,
No. There's like a Nike moccasin.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's Kyrie's shoe. Because he's standing rock suit.
Ah.
This guy.
Isn't that nice?
This guy, it looks like he's listening to Kyrie talk about flat earth.
Which is just, listen, we appreciate the shoes.
So you're down 0-2. All right.
Okay, just enough with the flat earth. You talk about the earth.
Ah, Jesus. Oof. Well, I hope you're proud of yourself, man.
Yes.
Yeah, look at this, man. Look at all this shit that your people didn't mind.
Okay, yeah.
I don't.
I'm not German.
Are you German?
I'm not German.
Yeah, but like you hold the responsibility. Like, are you serious right now?
Well, how do I mean, okay, I don't understand, like, objectively, yes, but like, my family, our people, we came here in the end of the 1900s.
Yeah, but you inherited. Look at how mean she looks. They're running away. Look at how scared everybody is.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, talk to that responsibility, man.
Yeah, but you don't have to, like,
Okay, I feel like you're not taking it seriously.
I'm taking it plenty seriously. I feel like you're all of a sudden asking a lot of me. I don't know. We're at a museum.
Well, that's why you come to museums, to challenge yourself.
Okay, but yeah, but you're challenging me. You're not challenging yourself. Why don't you challenge yourself? I'm gonna go challenge myself.
I'm challenging myself by talking to you about this. Wait,
Yeah,
you're
you're not
not
challenging-
away?
you're not challenging-
Hey, man, how'd you like it, huh? How'd you like it?
to walk. Stop. Why are you touching?
Why are you touching? Fucking look at it, man. This is serious, man. It's fucking violence. It's violence, man.
What the fuck are you doing?
Sometimes you just have to sing to call the cows. Red road circles, three sisters garden, corn, beans, and squash. We come together to learn from one another. Everybody is a little bit of an anthropologist, interested in learning, understanding, curiosity. Empathy is the long game. It's people. It's us, people. This laughter, this applause, this ovation, this ecosystem, this mic drop moment.
So you get a sense of the film. And how, I gave you the ending already, but throughout the whole piece, I just felt like it would really, we got really lucky exploring and being able to tell these stories with and through the community. And yeah, it's a great project. So if you get a chance and you're in Denver through the new year, then come visit. The installation itself, this is how it looks in the gallery. So I wanted to shoot this or have this work both as a two-channel video installation, as well as the film itself is considered a single channel or the narrative version of the project. And then in the reverse corners, we have these looping images. This is mapped to the back of this. If you've ever been to the Denver Art Museum or seen it, it's got this really, odd geometric shape, and so all the walls, a lot of the walls in the museum are, angled and kind of weird like this. But so these two walls kind of play some of the B-roll or the secondary footage, and then extended versions of those. And they also loop through the gallery. So there's no point where, as this loops, that these images are the same. So there's always some different relationship going on with the imagery and the story, which I thought would be really good for kind of an installation, kind of experience of the piece in that way. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my work. And I know we want to do some questions and answers, and I'm happy to share further or answer any questions you guys have.
So folks, it's open to questions. Please come forth with any.
Yeah.
One is about method, and I really love the stuff you're doing, the moving vehicles, and then also
sky. That would be something. No, I haven't gone that far yet. I think just getting into the raft is the next, for me, like getting on water. Water in the West is the issues are different than here in the East, but it's, so that for me was like getting on the water would be the next place to explore that idea. But I like that maybe that will be the wingsuit, wingsuit and sketching.
My other question is, how do you balance the sort of self-deprecating parts of your artwork and sort of like self-reflective points and humor that you sort of, I've seen in a few places.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I try to come into the work with, I want to, like the drawing and driving, it's, if you ever experience it or you kind of participated in it, it's not like kind of feels performative, but it's a thing. Like you just, when you experience it, it kind of brings joy. So I think finding, initially when I started making work, it was out of kind of it was through, maybe it was more therapeutic for me. But then as I've grown to just, as I'm creating work, throughout my life, I'm always I want to at least start somewhere, not from tragedy all the time, but, is there a point of joy that I can come from, or something that, like the Knowing You Denver really became this, it fulfilled a lot of that. And of course it touched on some of the awkward and the humorous, in that last scene. And each one of those scenes has its own moment. But, definitely in the early on in the painting, in dealing and exploring those issues around identity, we look at, Native humor and family and stories, and those are, I feel like, for a lot of us, for many of us, that's how we survive and we get through things.
That was you in the cake part, right?
Yeah. Like that idea of me in my little shorts. Yes.
I want to go back to when you said someone asked, what's the meaning? And then you're like, let's totally disregard that. I want to know what's the point of like going into a meaning and not any meaning.
Well, I think it has, it's different for everyone. I think what I'm trying to do in asking that question is because this type of painting isn't really about, I'm not telling a story, it's not from a specific story. I'm framing this as a sense of like how can I give this, how can I create something that for one is speaking back to me and it's feeling like, I love the momentum or the feeling or the balance of this painting. And I think in that there's the meaning. But to be specific about like what does this, what does this symbolize or what does this mean specifically, that's where the question I think is not the one that I'm trying to answer. Was that a good answer? Yeah. Okay. I'm like, did I answer that or was that I could work around? Thank you for that. Yeah.
Going back to like your first mural, I am curious how, like, what were the steps you took to get connected to the museum, and how you got caught doing that mural?
That's a good question. So the question was, how did I get connected to the museum when I worked in that first mural? This is one thing that I will encourage all of you to do as you kind of step into your careers, is to be your voice and email a curator. Introduce yourself to folks at the museum and just it was through that process that I met some folks at the museum, but just by visiting, I would always go. I was painting at the time, but just doing small little shows in coffee shops or in small little like community galleries, and I just tried to make myself known and introduce myself to the folks that were in the education department in this particular case. And then through that, I invited them to my shows and I invited them to come out and see what I was doing. And then I eventually now it's turned into like inviting people to do a studio visit, like curators or, collectors or people that you think could help support what you're doing. And then through that process, it slowly, they introduced me to other people in the institution. And then there was an opportunity with this grant that happened. It was called the Millennium Grant, I think. The Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation funded it, but they were just aware of my work at that point, and then when this grant opportunity popped up, they said, you should apply for this, and we'll be your host organization. And so it's like incremental steps, but you have to take the step and to advocate for yourself and to make those introductions. Sometimes it's really hard, especially when you're starting out and you're not sure what you're doing yet. And as you see, like the work, I wanted to show this range tonight because I wanted you to see. I started out thinking I was just going to be a painter, and I think when I started painting, I was just painting the figure, and I'm like, this is all there is for me. This is all I'm going to do. And I had no idea that I would have never imagined doing a community film or the drawing and driving. Those things just happen over time. But yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, I really like your red a lot. Very positive visually, and being about the same age as you with the play off your planet is a huge album in our generation.
Yeah, and remember Fear of a Black Hat?
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering though, with its theme being relocation, and with you having lived at Black Mesa for a while, was there a reason that you didn't explicitly deal with the Navajo Hopi Relocation Act and all that?
The Navajo Hopi one. That was the second long walk is what that's referred to as. Yeah, that's interesting because there was the hope. So what he's referencing is there was a point, I think it was in the mid-'80s, that there was so the Navajo reservation in the Four Corners area, within the Navajo reservation is the Hopi reservation, is a smaller reservation land-wise, but there was a relocation where the Hopis were allotted, more land, which took away from, it was a complicated kind of situation. It was just what, I think because I was trying to think of more of the grand narrative with speaking to just the long walk for the Navajo, and then because I've lived in Phoenix, and the Yaqui story, who came up from the Sonoran Desert from what's now Mexico, but into the Arizona region, into Tucson and Phoenix area. And because I was living there, that felt like the most relevant or the important thing to cover. And then the boarding school, which was a bigger story, and then the issue around water. So it wasn't that, I guess I wasn't trying to take away from the importance of that story, but it's just one that I just didn't choose to explore.
Cool, I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's cool, to know about the Hopi relocation story.
I stayed in Black Mesa for a little while.
Okay.
Like 25 years ago.
You know the area then? Yeah, my grandmother on my stepfather's side was actually relocated. She lived in a place called Cactus Valley, and she was part of that relocation. Yes.
How did you come up with drawing and driving?
What was that?
How did you come up with drawing and driving?
Desperation. This is a true story. The drawing and driving, so that residency that I was at in Maine, Skowhegan, it's on like 60 acres of land. Whenever you get there, they give you a studio, and then they're like, well, this is your studio, and This is where, and everybody, you live down by this lake and you eat down by this lake, but then your studio is up kind of in the hills. So the first 2 weeks I was there, I was walking back and forth between the studio, and my studio was up at a higher elevation. And I just, as something to do, I would walk by this wood shop, every day, and I thought, oh, it'd be cool just to get back down the hill a lot quicker. So initially it wasn't even to draw and drive, but I was just going to make this little soapbox car. So I put the easel on it just as kind of a joke, like I'm just going to do this so I can at least tell myself I'm getting some work done, or I can. But also, I think subconsciously, I've been thinking. I drove to Maine, which is a long drive from Phoenix. My wife was a transportation planner, so there's this always conversation around city planning and car culture, and so the car, was in my subconscious, and I think wanting to find that point of joy in a project, and at the residency, I was painting, and I really took a big turn, and this project just kind of came out of fun, and came out of experimenting and being goofy, but sharing this project became this conversation around drawing and around all these other things, and it's just kind of grown in that way. But yeah, it started off as just like a way for me to get down the hill a little bit quicker and dinner. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys so much for having me, and I appreciate